Hello and welcome to the 37th episode of the Adamola Bookman podcast. My name's Albond and I'm joined by my co-host John Coughlin. Hi Johnny.
Hey Al, how are you doing?
This week we are doing Gazza in Italy by Daniel Storey.
Signore will take the free kick. Gascoigne, yes, he's got it! His first goal for Lazio comes 3 minutes from the end of the Rome derby.
All right, so Johnny, what do you know about Gazza?
Well, we've talked a thousand times about how you're that little bit older than me, and Gazza was just... I kind of started watching football after Gazza was good. So I never got the Gazza as a good player kind of years. I started watching when he was in Italy, actually, really. I was watching football when he came back to Rangers and when he was playing for Middlesbrough and things like that, when he wasn't very good. But I didn't see him for Spurs, so I never caught the real magic of it. How good was he?
I missed his glory years. I mean, they were the late 80s, early 90s. We didn't have there was no Sky back then. So, yeah, you didn't see much of it. And I think more than anything, reading this book is realised that his talent was obviously undeniable. I mean, he's described as the greatest footballer of his generation by Alex Ferguson, but there's no denying that talent was sporadic, right? It was on and off. And basically, after the knee injury, I mean, it's just so bits and pieces, isn't it? His whole career is just moments here and moments there.
How much do you remember of World Cup 1990?
Certainly outside of England, that is my formative. Outside of Forest, that is my formative football watching. Yeah, I watched all of 1990.
That's when you came online in a football memory sense.
Yeah, that's when I started to really, feel pain in football.
Other than my brother being born in 1989, the World Cup in 1990 is my first memory. I was 6 as well. I should probably have more memories, but I don't.
I mean, that's quite interesting. I think my first memory is putting a staple through my thumb at about 3 years old. But you never know, do you? It could all be false, couldn't it?
I once stapled my thumbs together.
Oh, you did?
It was wildly painful.
Yeah, my mum soothed me by putting me in front of the flumps. You remember the flumps, Johnny? I bet you don't.
Maybe I saw them before I was 6.
Okay. Good answer. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, you saw the magical moments with Gazza, but what he certainly was, the other day we did the Duncan Ferguson book where the author has the audacity to suggest he was like the most significant and controversial footballer of his generation. Well, he wasn't. That was Gazza, right? Gazza was the most famous English footballer until Beckham.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about this Gazza mania. Was he the first, George Best was from Northern Ireland, so he was a good bit earlier, but was Gazza that first kind of media darling, if you want, of, that kind of football as celebrity in England?
Yes, I'd say so. I mean, the other significant footballers before him, it was like, Captain Marvel, Brian Robson, but he didn't really have any significant personality.
Chronic alcoholism. But other than that...
I mean, there was also Lineker, who was very white bread at the time. John Barnes, who was significant, but really not a media presence also, other than like Isotonic Lucozade Sport. But Gazza, he absolutely was the media darling. And Daniel Storey looks into that. I mean, he says at one point, before 1990, the enduring image of an England player would be like Terry Butcher with blood dripping down his face, a big blood-soaked bandage. And, it's a great look, no question at all. But Gazza was like a young man, good at football, a proper lad, hard drinking. But then he also cried. He also cried on the television. He cried tears of self-pity. And that's... Well, the author posits that this really was the beginning of the new man phase we heard all about in the 90s. But yeah, someone who was a cool footballer, a tough guy your mates could respect, but there he was sobbing away on television, feeling sorry for himself. It is an enduring image, and I think it was a seismic moment for football, certainly in England.
So that kind of ponce would be totally out of fashion now again.
Well, that's it. I mean, who do we see crying on a football pitch now? Cristiano Ronaldo. He doesn't get the same sympathy, does he? Everyone jeers and laughs.
But the manosphere would have no truck with the likes of Gazza.
Oh, no, crikey, no. Well, that's it. Poor Gazza. It says here that semi-final game was watched by 26.2 million people in England, which at the time was more than half the population. That is a lot of people watching you cry for getting a silly booking. That is a lot. I mean, it really must have had a big effect on everybody.
So the import of the crying and the booking was he'd missed the final.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yes, that's it. He received his second yellow card. So if England were successful, he wouldn't be able to play in the final. And as he says, this was the best time of his life. He couldn't believe it was ending.
It's not how Roy Keane dealt with it in 1999.
No, there's more than one way of dealing with it. But Gazza's Gazza, isn't he? And that's what he was. Salman Rushdie said, "Has anyone ever before become a national treasure just by crying on the television?" And no, I don't think they had they?
When Salman Rushdie is weighing in on things, you're dealing with a kind of a figure of a particular kind of cultural heft,
Yeah, he doesn't comment on like Peter Crouch's latest antics, does he? Like,
not so much. Not so much.
Gazza really was. Yeah, he was. Terry Wogan, when he described him as the most famous and the most popular man in England.
Yeah,
and I think that probably would have been true at that time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's just dive into this book.
Campionato di calcio italiano.
Very much the earlier part of this book, they set the scene with the whole World Cup 1990 hysteria, Gazamania. But maybe the most interesting thing, did you know this, that Margaret Thatcher considered removing England from the World Cup for fear that they would tear the place apart after all of the problems of the 1980s? Had you heard that before?
Yes, I had. Yeah, Thatcher had some fairly draconian plans regarding football hooliganism. I can remember being a little boy and one of my grandmother's friends suggesting that she was American. Why don't we just ban soccer? And as like a 10-year-old, I was like, well, I'm not sure that's a decent plan. But yeah, imagine the uproar if they just pulled them out of the World Cup, and how counterproductive that would have been. As really, that was the beginning of the solution to the problems of football in the 80s.
Absolutely. I just happened to listen to the Rest is History's episode on The Beautiful Game, in which they had Jonathan Wilson on. And they talked exactly about that, how 1990 was this massive kind of sea change, I suppose, for the image of football and football followers from England. And suddenly, you had this Taylor report after Hillsborough, and well, I guess what they started doing is they started increasing the price of tickets, really, ultimately. But suddenly, football, as this kind of thugs game, was replaced in the public's image with, opera and holidays in Italy.
Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, yeah, Nessun Dorma did a whole lot for football, I think, all by itself. Yeah, it's astonishing. I mean, the change, they charged more for tickets, and that resulted in attendances going up. Yeah, you'd think it was counterintuitive, but incredibly effective. Yeah, 1990 was, the beginning of that, when the footballers became real household names, and none more so than Gazza. We say it's a book. It's a very short book. What is it, even 100 pages long?
Well, I listened to it, of course, because it was available on audiobook, and it's about football in Italy, and I had the additional treat of it being read by James Richardson from Gazzetta Football Italia.
Yeah, it's the only time I've actually been jealous of you listening to the audiobook version. Yeah.
That's not true. You said you were jealous when I listened to Martin Keown doing impressions of his own father.
The moment it came out of my mouth, I knew you were right. Yeah, absolutely. That is, but yeah, I had to hear the book in my own stupid voice as opposed to lovely James Richardson's voice.
But
I
there's
didn't
more
read it aloud. I read it in my head.
But there's more in this book. There's more in a single page of this book than there is in all of the Milner book. It's lovely. It's really well written book. It's like obviously well narrated because it's AC Jimbo, and it's just brilliant. It's just a brilliant book. This.
Well, isn't it just? Absolutely. Yeah. It tells the story of his time in Italy. It doesn't ask to do more than that, but it does exactly that. And what's more, it gets a bunch of fun anecdotes in as well. Like, there's some lovely Gazza stories here. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't want to jump ahead to the end of the podcast, but yeah, this is good. If you have any interest, and I learned so much. I knew of Gazza's time in Italy, but I didn't really know what went down, and now I do. It's excellent.
Well, I think rule number one for these books, and this is where James Milner and Mark Noble went wrong, just have an interesting protagonist. They should have picked someone else to write their books about.
Yeah, Mark Noble's autobiography should have been about Paolo Di Canio.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
You go.
Okay, but the 1990 stuff, just right out the gate, this stuff is fun. So the lads are in Italy. Bobby Robson, lovely Bobby Robson, classy Bobby Robson is the manager. He's trying to get them to, be calm and relax and not be a bunch of boozing maniacs. And then Brian Robson breaks his toe in some horseplay in the bedroom one evening in the training camp. And then later on, Gazza breaks his toe diving into a swimming pool.
Yeah, there you go. Some pretty rough horseplay there with those lads, I would imagine.
Blind drunk, I'd imagine, too.
I mean, I guess we must have roughhoused, but I never feared for my toes at any point.
The whole Gazza-mania stuff, I didn't know that. There was quite so much hysteria around Gazza.
I mean, I have to be honest, Johnny. I went to a private school. It was a rugby school. So I'm not sure how much hype I was exposed to, frankly. I mean, I missed out a lot of this because there's a lot of talk about the Football Italia show. And I'm sorry to say, I used to go to school on a Saturday morning, like awful private schools. So I missed out on all of that. The whole of the Italian football phenomenon is kind of a mystery to me. I only got into it a bit later with your likes of your Batigol, but I never saw any of this Gazza stuff. I don't think I ever saw Gazzetta Football Italia.
I definitely watched it. And I remember I would watch the magazine show, but not so much the matches on the Sunday because they were a bit boring.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's some statistics about Italian football there. Yeah. So Italian football, famously Catenaccio, the defense above all. There's a famous Italian quote saying like the perfect game of football ends 0-0 because there's been no mistakes. Okay. But anyway, yeah. So unquestionably, Italy was the premier European league at the time. I mean, like the players in it. It's unparalleled. No one came close. But they're saying, and the year that Napoli won the league, and that was Maradona's Napoli, they scored 41 goals in 30 games. Is that right? And they were the leading scorers in the league. Oh, you bandit. No one scored more than them. No one teams. I mean, nowadays, Haaland gets 41 goals by himself. Wild.
There was all this interesting stuff. So Gazza goes to Italy as Sky are coming into the Premier League, right? So that's the other thing. You've got Italia 90, but then you've got Sky reinventing football. And they brought out posters all over the country advertising the Premier League. And at the same time, Channel 4 bought the rights to show Serie A. And everywhere in England that Sky put up a poster advertising the Premier League, Channel 4 put up a poster saying, on Sunday, watch the world's Premier League. And your man Daniel Storey says in the book, there were 4 times more people watching Italian football in England on Channel 4 than there were watching the first league of the Premier League. 4 times. Now, that took me by surprise.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even today, Sky football games get about a viewership of like 2 million or something. It's always much less than you'd expect. But yeah, like 3 million people tuned in to watch Italian games, which nowadays, with the advent of streaming, I mean, 3 million is what like EastEnders gets nowadays. I mean, huge numbers. And I think Channel 4 bought the whole rights for £700,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well done there.
Yeah, the guy who the guy running Channel 4 at the time was saying that he really knew he was onto something when he was walking through the park and he heard kids scoring goals and go lads, or whatever. Isn't that sweet?
Oh, that's awesome. And it is the best. I touched on it. It is the best football theme music ever. Ever. Fuck knows what they say. Italiano, Skilitano. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, I used to shout Galazzo. I used to just do that music. Yeah,
but
really
I don't remember Gazza being such a massive part of the football show itself, the Gazzetta Football Italia. So the original plan was for Gazza to host the show. Worked out pretty well for AC Jimbo, really, didn't it?
It just seems laughable now, doesn't it? With everything we know, like, oh yeah, maybe Paul Gascoigne would be a good host. So no, yeah, AC Jimbo. Well, he did the whole world a favour by giving us James Richardson. But he sounds like he was a pretty good sport, right? He'd turn up and do all the daft things they wanted to do for the show. And he brought some friends, brought Lombardo. I thought that was classy.
I actually do remember the Lombardo stuff, I think.
So if I just, if I may just step in very quickly. So after the 1990 World Cup, the Italian League decided they wanted to bring some English players over to the Italian League. And so they sent a conglomeration over. And it was, on the English side, it was headed up by Jeff Powell, the Daily Mail dickhead sports journalist. You know who Jeff Powell is? He is the absolute worst. He is the one who'd be like, England sold its soul by appointing Thomas Tuchel, a German. He is just the worst. He's old now, and they only like wheel him out for the real hit pieces, like the horrible Daily Mail patriotism stuff. But yeah, Jeff Powell is a scumbag. But he was the one who was sort of responsible for bringing not only Gazza but Des Walker and David Platt to Italy.
Yeah,
so thanks for that, Jeff. Poor Des.
There was an interesting kind of backstory, right? So Spurs were the first team in England to be floated on the stock market, but it kind of fell apart and they needed to raise money, and the easiest way to raise money was selling Gazza. And of course, Spurs had been the cup final. They had won the cup, Al.
Yes.
So it was obviously controversial, and it sounds like Gazza very much didn't want to go initially.
But then apparently he was enticed by the fact he could try and get back that 1990s World Cup vibe, and that appealed to him. But he was hurt that Spurs were trying to get rid of him.
Oh, geez, there's a real kind of pang of kind of the addictive trait there, isn't there? Chasing a kind of a high.
Well, that's it. Daniel Storey literally puts it. He chased the dragon all the way to Lazio. Just to put in Italy standing in the game at the time. In 1990, after the World Cup, Gazza came fourth in the Ballon d'Or. And he came fourth to Lothar Matthäus, Toto Schillaci, Paul Bremer, and Franco Baresi. All of them were playing in Italy. It really had the stranglehold on all the top players. So if you really wanted to be the best, you had to go to Italy at the time.
So Gazza is going to Italy. Lazio, Milan, and Juve are interested. And Agnelli, the older Agnelli, the father of the other guy.
You can't see it, listeners, but I'm rubbing my hands together here like, oh, it's some Gazza stuff. Okay, yeah. So Juventus are interested in signing Gazza, you say?
Yes.
And Agnelli went to meet him. Oh,
yes.
Good. What happened, Johnny? So did Paul Gascoigne talk about the prospect of moving to Juventus, what that would mean for his life and his football prospects? How did Gazza react to meeting Agnelli?
He put the elderly Agnelli in a headlock.
Oh, he did? That doesn't seem right. What did he do then?
Well, I can't remember.
No, he slapped his bald head. That's what he did.
Did he go to Juve in the end, by the way?
I don't know. He didn't. Apparently, he was put off by this. The elderly, distinguished chairman of the Fiat Group Didn't like being put
Do you
in a
remember-
headlock
do you
by a
remember-
21-year-old Geordie and having his bald head slapped? Come on, Gazza!
It's like when Mr. Burns, it's an Homer plays bongos on Mr. Burns' head and drives him around the power plant.
It absolutely is like that. I'll tell you, I was looking at the last book, Totti, and I was thinking, Antonio Cassano, you can only try, mate. You can only try, like shriveled old shrew or something, whatever he called his chairman. Come on, you got to fucking put him in a headlock and smack his bald head. Beautiful.
But so then going back to the cup, do you remember this tackle he put on Gary Charles?
Yeah. I mean, I was at that game. I was sitting at the Spurs end. I got spat on by a Spurs fan. I was
Nice.
13 years old. I remember it very much. And I remember, like, when Gazza got, like, stretchered off, sort of like low-level cheering, and my dad trying to keep me quiet, like, because I couldn't be cheering Gazza going off injured. But, of course, it didn't work for us. Naeem came on and played well, and we lost. Fucking Des Walker.
So the whole thing is lined up. He's going for, is it 7.5 million? Or was it more?
Yeah,
'Cause it came-
7.5 mil.
So he gets injured. And I guess the other thing that kind of touched Gazza was Lazio really stuck by him. So that was a cruciate ligament injury.
Yeah, and that was a real career ender. Even that, 30 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
they took forever to come back from. Nowadays, I mean, I guess it's 6-8 months, right? But you've got a pretty decent chance of coming back. Chris Cohen at Forest, he did one in his left knee, 8-9 months out, came back, did his right knee, 8-9 months out, came back, did his left knee again, and he retired. So heartbreaking.
Did you know this Gazza Glenn Roeder connection? That one took me by surprise.
No, I did know about that. Yeah, Glenn Roeder was like Gazza's bodyguard. Not bodyguard, like an elder brother figure, right? We keep him in check.
When they were at Newcastle. But there was some idea that he was going to go with Gazza to Lazio in some kind of coaching capacity. But then Gazza aggravated and re-injured the knee on a night out. And then Glenn Roeder was like, sorry, Paul, I'm not going to go. He was kind of upset with that. But I didn't know that. They're two people I wouldn't have put together, Gazza and Glenn Roeder.
Glenn Roeder, one of the he's a guy, remember like 15 years ago, like just playing, Forest got a managerial vacancy. Please not Glenn Roeder. Please not Glenn Roeder, the most uninspiring man in football.
He's dead now, isn't
Yeah, but
he?
it says here.
He's dead
Oh,
now,
is
isn't
he?
I think so.
Oh, blimey. Yeah, maybe that does ring a bell. Yeah, it says here, interestingly, that whilst playing at Newcastle, Gazza wasn't really a big drinker and that the drinking only really started in London, which is a shame.
Well,
He
it's a
also
big shame.
says
Yeah.
he only likes sweet drinks like pina coladas. What's for drinky drinks? It's a
Yeah,
real,
it was
real nice.
It was
Pina
pina colada.
coladas.
So remember when we were really trashing Matt Letizia for drinking Malibu and Coke? That is just square. Pina coladas, on the other hand, the guys are doing that. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it? Pina colada, that's a holiday.
Oh boy.
Malibu and Coke is like a slapper at a nightclub in a provincial town. Different.
So he goes, Lazio stand by him and he goes to Italy. He's some boyo, isn't he? So he arrives in Italy and he does his press conference wearing funny glasses and stuff like that. And then he goes into the training ground with 20 or so copies of English for Italians and leaves them on the little bench for all of his teammates.
Yeah, he's so likeable, but then he forgot his boots as well, apparently, and had to train in plimsolls on the first day. He remembered the guidebooks, but he forgot the boots.
He's this is the thing that Storey says throughout, that he's just got this incredibly infectious personality, and all the people that he speaks to throughout the book, that Gazza is a bit of a clown character, but he is really charismatic and really kind and kind of generous spirited kind of fella, right?
Well, I mean, if I quickly interject with an anecdote, one of my old school friends lives in Melton Mowbray in the East Midlands of England. And he was in a local boozer, and this fella came and sat next to him, and it was Gazza. And Gazza bought all his drinks for him, and they played pool all night. It wasn't like, they hung out for 10 minutes and Gazza was polite. They hung out all night long. And, my mate talks about this is one of the greatest nights of his life. That's still his Facebook profile picture, him and Gazza. And this was less than 10 years ago. And he just said he was so nice. Just asking him about himself, asking him about his family. Just a wonderful, kind man who has real problems.
And did your friend from your rugby school know who this guy was?
Yes, he did. Yes. Yeah, he did know. He did know.
Yeah, lovely guy down the boozer.
I mean, wild, right? Imagine just being in fucking big drinker. But yeah, just it's amazing. You just can't think of anyone else who'd do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he got to Lazio, by the way, he was given the number 10 shirt, which, as we learned from Totti, is a massive honour.
Yeah. So
in Italy.
Yeah. I feel like it was good that we did these books in this order, because we'd kind of been given this primer on Rome and the pressure of being in Rome from Totti. So, and isn't this a lovely term? That position that Gazza plays is a fantasisti.
Yeah, fantasisti.
Storey explains in this book that there is, numbers have particular meanings for different clubs, but that's more like 7 at Manchester United, at Liverpool, 6 at West Ham, that kind of thing. But he explains that that's just because there was players that had that number in the past who were particularly good. But in Italy, well, globally, but in Italy and maybe in Argentina, number 10, everything revolves around number 10. And remember in the Totti book when he explained that Del Piero told him that he could have number 10 and Del Piero took number 7. I guess I didn't realize the heft of that, at the time.
Yeah, it's a real talisman, the number 10 shirt. And I think it's also interesting talking about Rome, that in the book, Gazza says that the Rome derby was more intense than Old Firm. And you don't often hear that, do you?
Yeah. Well, the only are him and Decano. I wonder how many Italian guys have played in both as well.
Oh, yeah, it's an interesting question, and one I'm simply not equipped to answer.
And he did score his first goal for Lazio in that derby against Roma. And there's always just these really charming wrinkles with Gazza, and the Roma fans were throwing things at him. One of them was a Mars bar. So he cracks open the Mars bar and has a little bite for himself. What class act. There's a really nice video of Gazza at the time in advance of that match, and he's saying that he's really struck by how everyone stopped. He can't go out at the moment. Everybody's stopping him in the street saying that they have to beat Roma. And he says it struck him that this is really a matter of life or death for the people of Rome. And I just hope I'm still alive next week, which is really nice, I thought. But yeah, okay. That goal against Pescara, woof, that's Maradona Messi level stuff, isn't it?
It sort of is. I don't know, it just looks... I watched it, and like Storey talks about it as being his greatest goal. It looked like they're playing on a fucking cabbage patch. It's so ugly, the ball, and it sort of bumbles and stumbles and scuffs off him a bit. I'm not saying he didn't. It's not his best goal for me, brother. No. He scored one in the FA Cup against Cov or Wimbledon. That was better. And obviously the free kick against Arsenal was better. And obviously the goal against Scotland was better.
No way is the goal against Scotland better.
Fuck off, Johnny. What are you talking about? That's the greatest goal ever scored.
Yeah, but that was just because of what it meant, where it was, and all those things. This goal in itself is okay. Pescara. Am I familiar with Pescara in any other sense? No. But
is that team that's literally called like Fishy, right? I mean, is that... Let's talk about that Gazza goal against Scotland. I watched that actually in Melton Mowbray, where we were just talking about around my friend's house, and prior to Gazza sticking that goal in, my bare arse had been on my friend James Veach's Scottish face after they missed the penalty. They held him down and we put a bare arse on his face, and then like 30 seconds Gazza scored that goal. It's like, we're in heaven and you're in hell. Lovely. My bare arse. Lovely stuff.
That's kind of Gazza-esque behaviour, really, isn't it?
Well, I was a teenager. We're all Gazza then. Here's a nice little fun story about Gazza. So when he went to Lazio, he was appointed 2 bodyguards, Gianni and Augusto. And one time they were outside his hotel room and they heard a scream, and they ran in And there was Gazza's shoes by the balcony, and he was gone, jumped over, and they were worried. And then there was Gazza laughing away in the bathroom because they thought he was dead. And so they stuck a gun in his face and told him not to do it again. So that's nice. And yeah, here was the one bit where I was like, I'd like to hear more about this. There was another time Gazza's bodyguards were assigned to guard a bank vault in central Rome. What do you mean you were assigned to guard a bank vault? That's all you get. Like, at one point, Gianni and Augusto were assigned to guard a bank vault. Were they? Have you ever been assigned to guard a bank vault, Johnny? Well, Gianni and Augusto were. And they said, don't let anyone in the bank vault. That's your job because you're guarding it.
Bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely don't let a crazed Geordie in there. Anyway. Gazza, can I go in the bank vault? No. Can I go in there? No, I won't touch anything. Go on then. And then, of course, apparently he's throwing up the cash like he's Scrooge McDuck. Why did they let him get in the bank vault? Because he's a man impossible to dislike, a gentle, vulnerable soul.
It was around this time as well where he was in a restaurant and he couldn't convey what he wanted to order. So he jumped into a lobster tank and extracted a lobster.
You've never done that? This is the beauty part here, Johnny, because you get there's lovely anecdotes. Yeah. Oh, Roberto Di Matteo, why don't you just put your hand in have you got any spare change? Oh, yeah, I'll just see. Oh, a live snake's in my pocket. He put a live snake in Bobby Di Matteo's. Yes, please.
Who didn't like him?
The Germans. The Germans didn't like him. Karl-Heinz Riedler, the bastard, and Thomas Doll, I don't remember him. I wonder why they didn't like him. One day, he didn't come to training. The team were leaving on a bus. Oh, there's a motorbike. Crashed. Oh, there's a man underneath. It's Gazza. He's covered in blood. No, it's Gazza under a motorbike covered in ketchup. Come on. It's the stuff, isn't it? Here's another one, Johnny, because they come thick and fast. So this is the story told by Kazaragi. They were on the team coach. They were going to an away game. They entered a long, dark tunnel. In said tunnel, Gazza removed every item of clothing that he had and was sitting next to Dino Zoff. Dino fucking Zoff! And waiting for him to notice that he was just completely naked, which he did. And Zoff liked him. Dino Zoff liked him. I just found this incredible. He gave him the captaincy at one point, which is, wow, really?
Yeah, Zoff really did like him. And it was reminiscent of Cantona because the person that Gazza really had most affection for, the manager that he responded to most, was Bobby Robson. And Bobby Robson just, it's that kind of, he treated Gazza with kind of a lot of, whatever. He was kind to him, I guess, ultimately. And Zoff was maybe a little bit like, a bit more hot and cold, but ultimately he was very charmed by Gazza.
Yep. Another time, come to dinner. I'm not ready. Come now. He came to dinner naked in a restaurant. One time, Sepp Blatter visited. Sepp Blatter visited the Lazio training ground. Gazza put on a Santa suit and introduced himself to Sepp Blatter. He once ran over a Lazio fan in his car. Another time, a youth player was getting a cup of tea for Manzini, who had some role at Lazio. He shot the teapot with an air rifle. Man, he needed something to do, old Gazza. Oh, and here's the other one, Cragnotti. And this is the saucy one. Cragnotti, who was the chairman of Roma, Lazio, is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he approached him at a club function. Tua figlia, grande tette. Your daughter has big tits. Well done, Gazza. Well done, sir. And he didn't like that. He didn't like having his daughter sexualized. Unbelievable.
But the thing that got him in trouble in Italy is the burp. Did you know about the burp?
Yeah. I didn't know about the burp, but I do now. I've watched the burp.
Me too. The burp that went around the world.
So he's debated in Italian Parliament.
Yeah,
in Italian Parliament.
He's injured for Lazio, Juve. And some journalist puts a microphone in front of his face and asks for a comment, and he burps just as he walks by. It seems that they overreacted to that, I think.
I mean, absolutely right. I mean, I have been the recipient of some pretty disgusting belches in my time. Like the same young man whose face was on my arse, he like literally made me puke sometimes with his. Yeah, this was just a little belch. It was that. It was over and done in half a second. I mean, my mate could keep him going for about 10 seconds with all the accompanying disgustingness. So, yeah, I would say that was an enormous overreaction. An enormous overreaction.
Yeah, but the kind of tide started turning for Gazza at this point. Then a few things happened at once. So he does this burp on television, and Italy is absolutely outraged. Then he punches a journalist on a plane, and this guy threatens legal action, but it never happens. Then he punches another.
Punches him in the balls. Just let's get that right. Just punches genitals in the book, but yeah, in the balls.
Punches the first one in the balls. Then he punches another fella outside a shop, and that one did go to court. And what was really, quite sad, I suppose, was this part where his phone was hacked at this point by the Mirror. Like he became paranoid, and he was convinced that he was hacked. And apparently this really aggravated his alcoholism, and it made him, drink a lot because he was so stressed out about it. But it wasn't until 15 years later, and he says in court that it had ruined his life. But anyway, all these things were happening once, and then the other, he's sent off in pre-season. He's putting on lots of weight. He's coming back. He goes on these crazy diets, just drinking water for like 4 days, and like loses a pile of weight in a few days.
No. It's not that crazy, Johnny. No.
Go on.
There's a lemon in the water.
Oh,
and
that's right.
A little bit of maple syrup for energy.
Yes.
And on the third day of the diet, he has a chicken sandwich. And it works for him.
Yeah.
So it's not just water. There's a bit of lemon in there and maple syrup for energy.
But isn't this one sad? They send him off to the Amalfi Coast to kind of, for whatever reason, at some point. And he goes off and he goes on a bender and he comes back really heavy. I told you not to send me on a holiday, Signor Zoff. That's sad.
Yeah. Storey likens him to Lenny from Mice and Men, which is always the thing. The poor lad, he just can't help himself. I think that's true, right? He goes away on holiday and he gets in holiday mode, and at that point, he just can't turn it around because he's an alcoholic.
Yeah, but it starts going wrong on the field, this is a bit of a theme sometimes in these books. Injury precipitates other kind of things in people's lives, but he does get injured. He gets hacked down against Roma, and he starts missing games, and he's in and out. He's in and out of the team. Yeah, and all these things are happening.
In that second season, he only plays 1,300 minutes total throughout the season, so way less than half the time.
He was still the Panini Player of the Year. Oh.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I know. Mad with all that competition, and he was the most demanded Panini sticker.
And he's having a tough time. His partner Cheryl is over, but they're having problems. And then Cheryl kind of goes back to England, and she's replaced by Jimmy Five Bellies and Cyril Martin. What could possibly go wrong?
Of all his pranks, this is the best one, right? So apparently he booked Jimmy Five Bellies' ticket to Rome from Newcastle. I mean, this is so fucking good. But that ticket, the plane ticket, went via Cambodia. So Jimmy Five Bellies, the dumb fuck when he must be, was like, do I have to go via Bangkok to get to Rome? Apparently I do. So yeah, he'd book him tickets, and this is a man, as Storey describes, with too much time and too much money on his hands, who would send his mate on like a 40-hour plane journey to get to Rome. Oh, it's so good.
Like, where does Jimmy Five Bellies think Rome is? Like, his friend has been playing there for about around a year, and he has absolutely no sense of where it is.
I mean, he might know where Rome is. I just don't think he knows where Cambodia is, right? I mean, I guess that's what it is. I mean, you wouldn't. I imagine Jimmy Five, and I'm just speculating here. Maybe Jimmy Five Bellies has a degree in geography, but I suspect that, his friend buys him a ticket. You just turn up, and you're like, "Where am I going? Bangkok, eh? All right, let's see." Another time he drove into Jimmy Five Bellies with his car. There's a prank, isn't there?
And he put cat shit in mince pies, which is, I think cat shit can kill you,
Oh, really?
I think so. It can cause like some horrendous kind of condition. The other thing that happens is there's a change of manager. Zoffa told Gazza that he could drink as much as he wanted so long as he played well. And Story kind of explains that so long as results are good, no one really gives a shit about your alcoholism. It's only when things kind of aren't happening on the field. So at some point I laugh, but it's pretty sad. Like Brian Robson checked, it was Gazza into rehab when he went to Middlesbrough in the future after Gazza drank 32 shots of scotch.
Just 32? He thought there was a problem? Bloody nanny state. 32. Yeah. I mean, it is sad. And this is it. When he's left to his own devices, Gazza, he hasn't got a friend. He just turns to drink.
And it
very
says
depressing.
They don't talk about it in great detail because maybe he doesn't have the information. But Gazza had a kind of a physically violent mother. So there's Story mentions that Gazza would weep when he talked about when his father was ill. So he had some deep-seated issues. Obviously, this poor man.
I mean, I'm just straying very quickly. I once watched this documentary, and do you remember Gazza went to play out in China? He went to play out in China when he was in his late 30s. It's a real Hail Mary. And he wasn't in like one of the big cities. It was the most depressing thing I've ever seen. Gazza was just sort of sat there by himself. He went to a snooker hall in China and would just play snooker. And he was just waiting for his dad and Jimmy Five Bellies to get there. It was so depressing. He just sort of sat in his room, went to training, couldn't speak to anyone, and then just went and played snooker for hours, for endless hours, just all by himself in China.
I wonder how long Jimmy Five Bellies' trip to China was.
Apparently they had come to meet him, but they'd stopped off in Hong Kong, his dad and Jimmy Five Bellies, and hung out there for a couple of weeks because it was much more fun than where Gazza was. Poor Gazza.
Poor Gazza.
And yet that actually gets touched on. There's a quote from Gazza and people saying, it must have been brilliant back in the day. Like, there you were, king of the world, super famous. And he says, no, I was just always drunk and hungover and ashamed. And they were his golden years. They were the years like, if he could have got back to that. But no, he was just always drunk. And there's always that myth that surrounds Gazza with if he'd gone to United, if Ferguson could have got hold of him, things would have been different. But I think Story really puts the myth to that. Like, Ferguson didn't have the ability to just make alcoholism disappear, did he? I mean, he would get rid of players who had that problem.
Yeah, we got rid of Paul McGrath.
Yeah, exactly right. So that whole thing's like, if only Ferguson got hold of Gazza, it could have been all different. Gazza would have been a 3-time Ballon d'Or winner. He wouldn't. He still would have been Gazza. He just would have been Gazza in Manchester.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been no different. That was certainly my takeaway from this as well. So he breaks his leg again in 1994, and that's kind of it for Gazza as a player, right? And
yeah, well, that's it. And this new coach, our old friends,
Zeman, who managed Totti at Roma as well. He was all about fitness, right? And he played a formation that didn't really suit Gazza either. So that was he was a drunk, injured square peg in a round hole at this stage,
And what's more, Zeman went on to achieve Lazio's best season for like 45 years. So there can be no arguments either. I mean, Gazza was at that point.
But they did improve. They did improve under Zoff. Like, they had gone from like mid-table to finishing more like 4th and 5th and challenging for Europe. So there had been improvements. But yeah, Zeman got more results. But not as much as our friend Sven, who's the one who brought them to the league later on after Zeman.
Yeah, the one thing I remember when Gazza was going out, and I must have been 14 or 15 when he was going to Italy, and I remember a pundit saying, just wait a little bit and then you can go to one of the really big Italian teams. And I do think that, that's it, AC or Inter or Juve would have been Lazio, sort of secondish level team. Well, yeah, Lazio in English football terms. Villa, Newcastle, Spurs.
Exactly. Yeah, Spurs, exactly that. But Spurs who occasionally win.
Yes. So this is his final season. Zeman's got no time for him. So he starts rocking into training on a Harley Davidson, smoking a cigar in his flip-flops. He's given up. He
started 2 games and came off the bench for 2 games in 94 and 95. So yeah, it wasn't going to happen. Zeman was going to get rid of him. Chelsea, Villa, and Rangers were interested. Gazza tells us his agent, look, I'm not interested in going to Queen's Park Rangers. No, it's Rangers in Scotland. But imagine the prospect of Gazza under Hoddle at Chelsea. That's kind of a tantalising idea, isn't it?
He would have bombed him out real fast and he would have trashed his hotel room.
Yeah. His last training at Lazio, as you say, he's going in his motorbike. He goes drunk for his last training and lays on the ground and refuses to get up. Has to be lifted into his car by Alan Boxage. It's not the most noble, dignified kind of exit, is it?
Yeah, I bet Boxage wasn't expecting that morning when he went into training.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very poignant at the end. Storey says, Gazza is a man of 1,000 mates, but no friends.
Yeah,
and all his mates would drink with him, but no friend of his ever would drink with him.
Well, that's it. Like, I know all his mates would drink with him, like, whereas what he needed was someone who would tell him not to drink, right? That's the kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's easier said than done, that, though, isn't it? It's always like they say that, it's like, only Michael Jackson had someone who said no to him. But if people did say no to Michael Jackson, they wouldn't be around Michael Jackson very much longer.
Yeah,
someone who said yes to him would happen.
Yeah. Well, he played 43 league games in 3 years, and according to the book, he was considered bidone, which is rubbish and overpriced.
There was a book released called Bidone, which was all about shit footballers in Italy.
He was on the cover.
Yeah.
But so it's double-edged, isn't it? Because there's still, at least when this book was written, there's still a Gazza banner at the Curva Nord, the North Stand, where all the Lazio ultras are. But then
you didn't happen to notice that when you were there, did you?
No, I was kind of at the other end. I wasn't in the Curva suit, but I was kind of right beside it, so I didn't see any Gazza. And the other thing, and I suppose these are the things that, endeared Gazza to the fans, was every time he scored, he jumped over the railings, like, and ran across this, this running track and got as close to the fans as he could, He connected with the fans, if you want, but he only played 43 times, and he's kind of seen as, like, if you kind of zoom out and not look at kind of the noise around Gazza, he's seen as a bit of a footballing failure with a few flashes, like goals against Roma, the occasional lovely goal like the one against Pescara, but ultimately it was a failure.
Yeah. His legacy was personality, not his footballing achievements.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty much fair for his whole career, isn't it, really? Gazza was a man of moments, big moments, but you couldn't rely on him consistently, certainly not after the early 90s.
This is how books should be done, I've decided. 4 chapters of Martin Keown's childhood. No thanks. What you want is straight into it on characters like Gazza and just tell one story and end it. Absolutely brilliant. Story was like great turns of phrases. It was really nostalgic. It was really nicely written. There was like great quotes, great stories. Read by AC Jimbo. Yeah, I love this. I think it was 2 hours long as an audiobook, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Absolutely. This was a story I didn't know the whole story of. 2 hours reading later, I do know the whole story of. And I'm happy to tell you can buy this book for less than £2 on Kindle. And I would absolutely recommend it. If you have any interest in Gazza or any interest in Italian football in the 90s, this is brilliant.
So how many snakes in the pocket?
I'm giving this 4 snakes in the pocket out of 5 snakes in the pocket, Johnny. It's an excellent book. Excellent book. As you say, 2 hours reading. There's absolutely no filler here. It's just facts, information, that's a tautology, and funny anecdotes. Yeah, there's just so much to like about this. And the main thing to like about it is Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel sympathetic towards Paul. 4.5 snakes in the pocket from me, I think.
Yeah. Excellent book.
Brilliant book.
Excellent book.
They should
Go
all be
read
like
it, folks.
this. Well done, Daniel Storey. You should go and teach that bastard Cian Ballaghy how to write a book.
Yeah, here you go. It's all about brevity, Guillaume. It's all about brevity. I mean, that's it. I really do feel I know as much about Gazza from reading 2 hours as I do about Messi or Ronaldo from reading like 25 combined hours about them.
Yeah, well, to be fair, in defense of Ballaghy, I guess Messi gives nothing, doesn't give much up, does he? Gazza, it's all plastic tits out, isn't it? Like he's there.
It's not really a cult of. Can you remember one funny anecdote about Messi? One funny thing he's ever done? I can't.
No, absolutely not. And if he ever did a funny thing, it was scripted and for money.
Yes, it is. Yeah, he's never removed his clothes in a dark tunnel.
Yeah, okay. Fucking magic. I loved it. All right. And what's up next? I think we've got the 3 Lives of the Kaiser.
Yes, absolutely. We're moving back to Germany now. And I'm interested in Beckenbauer. Again, this is a figure I know only really as one of the Mount Rushmore of footballers. But actually, about his playing career, I don't really know a great deal at all.
The 3 Lives of the 3 Lives of the Kaiser was called. We will be back next week with an Injury Time, where we're talking about footballers with drug bans.
Drug bans. It's a world I know nothing about, Johnny. Okie dokie. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
All right. Thank you very much, Al. And I'll see you next week.
Let your body spin like there is nothing in life but dancing. I can't keep my hands off you, as if this look like glue.